Have you wondered why you keep waking up at night and stay awake for quite a bit despite there being no obvious reason? If you wonder this and how to reset your sleep experience to one of uninterrupted sleep, this class is for you. We're going to learn that waking up is perfectly normal and a part of how we humans sleep. However, depending on how we react to those normal wake ups, we may experience interrupted or uninterrupted sleep. In this episode, we're going to learn how you can reset your sleep experience to what you want, which is one of sleeping through the night. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a sleep physician turned sleep coach and founder of the Sleep Coach School, in which we help high achievers, driven, and health conscious people like yourself who struggle with insomnia leave that struggle and find peaceful sleep forever. In this episode of our series, Frequently Asked Sleep Questions, we're going to look at a very common one. How do I stay asleep through the night? What has happened is that you found yourself waking up many times throughout the night, or you had one awakening and you stay awake for a long time, whether it's in the early morning or in the middle of the night, but your sleep is no longer uninterrupted and you wonder why you struggle with this. I'm glad you're here because, of course, this is exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about why it happens and how we get back to that experience of sleeping through the night. And to do so in a meaningful way, we're going to first start with, I could call this normal sleep, but I said sleep physiology here. It's going to be very brief, but we're going to learn a little bit about normal sleep. And then we're going to see what it is that actually keeps us awake or keeps us waking up. And then we're going to see what resets our sleep experience. And now, of course, this all applies to someone who has that, like, there's no obvious reason why you're waking up, and there's no medical advice here. If you're concerned about the health, of course, talk to your doctor. But the most common reason for this experience, I think we're going to cover in this episode. So let's start with sleep physiology. And what I mean with this is just like what typical sleep looks like, what quote unquote normal sleep looks like. And what really, really benefits us to know is that we humans, we wake up many times, not per night, but per hour of sleep. We wake up many times per hour of sleep. That's typical and normal. And don't take it from me. Ask, your favorite AI or Google, or look at a textbook of sleep physiology. You'll find this to be true. We wake up many times per hour of sleep. Why is that? Well, this is really for safety reasons. If you imagine us being, out in the wild with predators and enemy tribes in the neighborhood, we are a bit vulnerable when we sleep. Our senses are not as active, right? We aren't aware of what's going on. So therefore, we have these brief awakenings where we kind of just like wake up, we scan the environment, everything's safe. Okay, then we fall back asleep. And we don't even remember those brief, let's call them scanning awakenings. But if you imagine us humans being like a pack animal, where we're like, there's 40 of us or 200 of us or something like that, sleeping in a pack out in the wild, there would always be somebody who was awake and could alert the rest of the tribe. So we have these scanning awakenings for safety purposes. They're perfectly normal. And that leads us to the question of, so if that's the case, why don't I have those just a scanning awakening and just fall back asleep and don't even remember that I woke up? Why isn't that happening to me? Why is my sleep interrupted? Well, it is because we may identify another source rather than, a tiger or an enemy tribes person as a threat. What can happen is we actually identify the fact that we are awake as a threat. And if this is not obvious to you, you may see this when you think about your own response and reaction to finding yourself awake at night. If you find yourself awake and go like, what's this happening? What's wrong? This shouldn't be happening. How can I get back to sleep? What's wrong? Then you see that you're identifying the fact that you're awake as a danger and as a threat. And then it's perfectly normal to stay awake. That's the whole idea of the scanning awakening, is that if we find a threat, we're supposed to be awake and take action. There's just been this kind of like confusion in the brain where it's identified the fact that we woke up as a threat, and now that keeps us awake. And it can be really confusing because there is no obvious reason, but this is what is creating this scenario. And now when we have identified our wake-ups as a threat, and that now keeps us awake, now we remember it because we're awake for a long time. We think about it, respond to it. And so again, the next day we remember that we were awake and we wonder why. And that preoccupation can keep the cycle going, which leads us to the third point here of how we reset our sleep experience, how we go back to the experience of having uninterrupted sleep. And the answer, of course, becomes of no longer seeing those wake-ups as a danger, as meaning something is wrong, or as a threat. That will change everything for us. Now, how can we do that? How can we no longer see those wake-ups as a threat? Where it can be simply the kind of gentle reminder in our heads that we wake up and we're starting to kind of like we feel our heart beating faster. We're starting to kind of panic a little bit and we're wondering why this is happening. We can just gently remind ourselves that waking up is a perfectly normal part of human sleep and nothing strange or unusual is going on. And that alone can lead us to feel a relief and fall back asleep again. Or if we're awake for a longer period of time, we're getting maybe a little annoyed, we can do something we like. We can treat wakefulness in a friendly way, not antagonizing it and make it appear as a threat, but treating it in a friendly way. And this can be reading a book, watching some Netflix show, or listening to a podcast, or again, just resting. Anything that changes our behavior in a way that we're now treating wakefulness in a friendly way really, really helps. And this resets our sleep experience. When our thoughts about waking up change and we no longer see any danger, then what happens is that we continue to have those scanning awakenings. We continue to have those normal physiological awakenings like all other humans do, but we again don't remember them. And we experience sleeping through the night. That is how we reset our sleep experience. I hope this brought a lot of value to you. Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. Hi, it's me, Daniel, and I hope you found the video you just watched really valuable. Now, I know how frustrating insomnia can be, especially if you are a high achiever, highly organized, a doer, a type A person who has figured out everything in life apart from sleep. Now, here's the thing. Although the wonderful traits you have can lead you to struggle with sleep, there are also the traits that can set you free. All you need to see how may be some personalized instruction. And you can get that in our Insomnia Immunity Program. If you think it is time to set yourself free, to find peaceful sleep, to feel connected with the world again, and have color return to your life, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com and join the Insomnia Immunity Program. And we can't wait to see you on the other side.